He turned on the stream. He hit the button. I'm going to be honest, y'all. I can't believe we're actually sitting here about to do this thing.
It's for real.
Thank you, chat, for being here on this really terrifying journey we're about to go on. So, hi, my name's Thomas Winkley. I work here at Unity Technologies as a senior technical marketing advocate on the education team. TLDR, I'm a Unity developer, and we're gonna jump together with you all, and we're gonna try to build a project in 8 weeks, and we'll see how it works out. That's the idea behind this show. This is the first jump at it. Let me introduce you to some of the colleagues that are gonna help us do this thing. Joy, say hello to the people.
Hi everybody, my name is Joy. I'm a senior instructional designer at Unity Technologies, obviously. My area of focus is Unity Learn. So if you've ever gone on to learn.unity.com and followed some tutorials, or better yet, taken a pathway, you might have seen me before. I appear in many of them. But yeah, that's my bread and butter. And yeah, I'm super, super stoked to be doing this. It's been a few months since I've done a game jam or anything, and this is actually something that we've been talking about for a really long time, and I can imagine no better people than you two to build a game together. So I'm so stoked. This is going to be so awesome. We're going to build an awesome thing, and it'll be great.
Itself.
Oh man, Joy is so excited. It is crazy. See, I'm just as excited, but maybe a little more anxious because, Thomas and Joy, you guys have been doing this a while. This is my first time. My name is Utsav. My role is technical product manager at Unity. I've been a game developer for about 80 years now, but I haven't done any game coding, anything in the past year and a half. So I'm jumping back into it, and I'm hoping I can keep up with Thomas and Joy over here.
It's going to be great. You're going to be awesome. And you're way, I don't know. I know that you're a better programmer than me, and I'm really stoked about that because that means that our code is going to be good. Because here's how I visualize it. I'm going to write out something that's insane, and you're going to be like, what? And then I'm going to be like, it's trying to do this. And then you'll be like, this is how you write the code. And then our game will be better.
See, no code is insane. Every code has its purpose. We'll find a way to make it work.
That's a challenge. That is a challenge. Be prepared.
So, to give you all kind of the idea and the scope of the show, excuse me, there's a frog in my throat apparently. We're going to jump on this, and we're going to take this from design to exception. We call this show Scope Check, and the reason we're calling it that is because every episode we're going to get together and we're going to look at what we have on our list of stuff to do. And we're going to see if we actually are going to be able to do it, and we're going to review the scope. That's where the name came from. So thinking about today, we're going to jump into the design of the game. We have some basic ideas of what we want to design, and we're going to let y'all, the Twitch chat, tell us how far it's going to go. And then we're going to dive in from there and kind of start building systems out. There will be live coding. There will be code reviews. There will be version control. There will be the sourcing of assets, and that's about all I can commit to so far. And Jason Spatial, you were absolutely right. I have a little bit of wall space in my office. I think I can fit one more poster, right over, there-ish maybe. Yeah, we got some space. We can find space. So that's what we're going to do. And I guess we can just jump off and do this thing, right? We don't have anything else to talk about. There's no more introductions. We all know who everybody is. We're stoked to see all these first-time chatters. Let's just do this thing.
Let's do it.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a design document, and if our good production wizard would pull that up for me, you can see here we have this. And this is our food-based game dev design document. We don't yet have a name for our game. We're calling it food-based game dev. If you were at our panel for Unity for Humanity, that was a joke thrown around a lot, and so we ran with it. So the first thing we need to figure out is, here's the idea. So the monsters are hungry. We got to feed them to survive. We're going to be locked in some kind of a space. There's going to be a sudden outbreak of hungry monsters, and we need to stay alive by feeding these monsters with food from around the world, I guess. And the hungrier they get, the more likely they are to eat you instead of tacos. Now, it might not be tacos. It could be pizzas. It could be
burritos,
hot dogs. Ash, we need to put in a monster petting simulator. That's a DLC pack later on. Pet the monsters.
We're committed to DLC already, Thomas?
Scope check.
Scope check. So no, I went to a talk by Matt Dondelinger from our advocacy team about monetization, and one of the tips was to plan in advance. And so we need to plan our monetization strategy, which is DLC, and we're gonna have Pet the Monster. Anyway, so that's kind of what we're looking at. So the gameplay, we're gonna play as a character stuck in an environment trying to avoid getting eaten by monsters and feed them food to keep them from going feral and eating you instead. And so the first thing we need to figure out is what the view of this is going to be. What's the perspective? Well, actually, no, I lied. The first thing we need to figure out is this a 2D or a 3D game? So we're going to throw up a poll in chat to figure out if we're making a 2D game or a 3D game. And if you, the chat is only for Twitch the poll is only on Twitch because YouTube doesn't have the functionality yet. So jump in. Give us the poll once it launches, and we're going to figure out, and I do believe we have some B-roll to show of kind of like the differences in 3D and 2D that we can take a look at while we're chilling and talking about it. when I think of this game as a 3D game, I think of maybe something like, I don't know if y'all have played the new Doom mobile game, Tiny Doom, Mighty Doom, but it's kind of like if Smash TV was a Doom sim. It's pretty fun. Overcooked is a great example of like a nice 3D competitive game. If you were at GDC, we actually had Overcooked competitions in our booth that were super fun.
What? I should have been at GDC, man.
And it was really cool.
Yes, you should have.
Yeah, we should have had you there. Next year, we got to make it work, make it happen.
I'm gonna make it work.
What are other like 3D games we can think of that like we could mimic or think about in this angle?
Yeah.
What other types of games? Yeah.
I think Overcooked was a pretty good, because like also when you think about monsters, so you know when Overcooked starts, have you seen kind of how they set it up with monsters needing food and all that jazz? Like I'm really getting a lot of Overcooked vibes with what we're starting out on.
Yep.
There's also, now this is like the wrong perspective, but the vibes are right. Job Simulator. There are some levels and stuff like that's like the kind of chaotic having to build stuff, people getting angry at you because you're not very good at your job. You know, that. But with zombies.
With zombies.
Zombies getting angry at you.
Hey, NymphDev is working on a clone of Overcooked, and see, there you go. We already have someone that can advise us in the chat when we completely do it wrong. Right now, by the way, 3D is winning by a large majority. It's 85. I actually went in and voted for 3D as well because that's what I'm more excited about. But
that's
I'll
cheating.
be here. No, absolutely, it's not. It's a poll.
That's cheating.
All right, there's only 21 votes for 3D. Then we'll minus my vote. If there's a tiebreaker needed, we'll subtract my vote from 3D.
Fair enough. I'll accept that.
I was trying to think of other like 3D experiences that could really play well for this. I don't know if y'all ever played like 3D Game Heroes back in the day on the PlayStation 3, Xbox. It was like a Zelda quote, like a Zelda clone that was all like blocky voxel graphics, like it was just like big voxels.
Wait, is this
it was beautiful.
Evolving game, or was this voxels all the way through?
This was voxels all the way through.
I might have seen, like, there's this one game. Am I misremembering it? Is anybody else? Okay, am I in an alternative reality? There's a game that started like in 2D, like 8-bit, and then like you upgraded and it got progressively more like next gen. Was that a thing? Did I dream that? I didn't.
Is that a fever dream?
There's so many games like that.
So
unless you're talking about a single game.
Yeah, a single game.
I'm gonna pull this up on stream because I have the power. So this is 3D Game Heroes that I'm thinking of.
It is.
And so it's like a Zelda clone, and like everything is like very blocky. You could actually design your own characters in the game. There was a character creator where like you would make their little 2D pixel version, and then it would just like fatten them out and make them all. It was really cool. It was a really, really cool game. So something like that could be really fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
Yeah. Grids. Build a grid that way your navigation's easier. Blocks, grids, simple units.
All right, so I think we're at a good place. Looks like the poll did finalize, and the clear winner is a 3D game. So I'm gonna drop that into our doc. This game will be a 3D game. That's our dimension. So we can update our design doc now. So the monsters are hungry, feed them to survive. Locked in a sudden outbreak. Locked in a blank. We'll say locked in a 3D world of. No, we'll leave that blank. Oh, my spacebar got stuck. All right. Oh my gosh. All right. Sudden outbreak of hungry monsters occurs. It might be time to buy a new keyboard, y'all. And now we need to dive into the next thing we're going to figure out. And this is, what's our perspective going to be? So are we going to do like a first person? Are we going to do a third person? Are we going to do top down? Isometric. Someone asking, by the way, are these streams recorded? Yes, they are going to be on YouTube, actually. Yo, Unity Bootcamp from Colombia checking in. What's good? Glad you're here. So we'll launch our next poll. Yeah, first person, third person, top down, isometric. I can't think of any other like 3D views we could think of.
Yeah, I can't either. Because top down, I'm also curious. Would top down? How do you think you do top down in 3D? Without making it isometric?
Well, I mean, there's going to be like some perspective things that'll still be apparent when 3D, especially if you're doing like advanced lighting sort of things. But I mean, honestly, That would be a very quick and easy way to cheat a 2D game if they
Yeah,
had chosen
yeah.
to. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, no, guys, we're totally doing 2D. It's just, in 3D format.
I mean, you could have like shadows that give the 3D perspective, right? Even though you look at it 2D point of view, you're essentially kind of calculating shadows and trying to do it that way.
All right. So and I want to jump in and talk to some of the YouTube chatters. Apologies, y'all. I only had one chat window open. So let's see.
We expect more from Thomas.
Let's see. So people got some good ideas pulling through. Evo Lounge. Ooh, we got some Tunics. See, Tunic is a really good 3D game. I love Tunic. I'm actually playing it on my Steam Deck right now. Big fan of that.
Hat design for monsters to sell? That sounds like a cool idea.
Yeah. Let's see. We got third person or top down are the two things that Retsy Studio wants, so we could look at type of that.
Awesome.
What else we got? Yeah, let's see. Yeah, definitely got to be simple. I agree with that. Someone saying one needs to understand, it needs to be simple. Again, we're trying to build like a playable build and version of this in 8 weeks, right? We want to have something playable and tackleable in like 8 weeks, which is scary and exciting, right? So this may not be feature complete, but it'll definitely be a minimum viable product, and it will be worth the wait.
I think that's why our name makes sense to me, because we're gonna have to give some things up, and I'm really excited while being anxious to build this out, to see what we actually have to give up as we build this out.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, that's where the fun comes in.
Yeah.
Just killing parts of your darlings. That's the way it goes.
I see a lot of hype for like an isometric Link's Awakening in the YouTube chat as well.
That's
YouTube
what I see too.
It's currently winning.
Isometric is a good feel. I love me some isometric.
But isometric's tricky to do well. Like, you can do it, but doing it well where it doesn't look warped.
We're here. We could do anything.
To do it poorly?
It may not be perfect.
To learn how to go from poor to a good isometric perspective in a game. That's what we're here for.
Yep,
so what I'm going to do... great question. Is this game intended for desktop or mobile? Ooh. I think our final output, in my opinion, is going to be WebGL. So probably desktop. And the reason for that is I would love to have all of y'all be able to play it and give us feedback on it as far as play testing.
Yeah.
And I don't want to like go too far down the rabbit hole, but I would love to have one of our episodes be a playtest episode, and that might be in the design doc for this show. Like, that might be a thing we're trying to do, is do like a playtest. Man, that would be so cool to have garlic as a power up, and if we could have the Tunic creator as a guest to help us, I would.
That would be dope.
That'd be amazing.
So yeah.
Also, I'm seeing that over here on YouTube, they're saying, let's make it in VR.
We could.
I mean, as much as I love VR, I mean, I've got a headset sitting on my desk here. The idea of trying to manage a stream and VR at the same time.
That's our monetization strategy.
All right, so we do have our winner. It is Isometric. It was a much closer vote. We had 11 votes for Isometric. Look, I'm just saying, y'all. Yeah.
Wow.
So top down was the least, because everybody wanted to do top down with a tweak. Everybody was like, we want top down, but we want one little Dutch on it. So we're going to do Isometric.
What if? It was like, no, guys, there's a brand new view. So we want top down, but just like a little different. You mean isometric? No, not isometric, but top down, but at an angle.
All right. So now we've got a doc updated. So monsters are hungry. We're going to feed them to survive. We're going to be locked in an isometric 3D world. And we've got a sudden outbreak of hungry monsters going forward. So I think, we've got some ideas. We've got a 3D game. 3D, it'll be isometric. It'll be top down. I mean, like, I think I'm sad I missed the YouTube chat earlier, because I think the call out of Tunic is like perfect. Also, my dogs say hello if you can hear them barking. I might have to scoot over and shut my door here in a minute. It's amazing because they sleep quietly until I turn on a stream. As soon as I turn a mic hot, they're like, oh, is it time for us to show up? We working?
Working pops, it's good. They're just helping.
All right. So let's take a look at our next setup, our next idea. So now we need to figure out like some mechanical stuff. And hopefully I put these as preset polls for Freeman. If I didn't, I'm sorry, Freeman. We'll just do it like lifestyle, because looking at these now, I'm like, I might have messed up our plans here, but we'll see. Let me pop the run a show and take a look here. Boop, 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 boop. Okay, yeah. So our next thing is we got to figure out where this game takes place, right? So it's got to be a place that food exists. It's got to be somewhere where we're going to be eating. So now we got to decide where. So we've got a couple options for you. So we can do this at like a mall food court. We could do it at like a school cafeteria. We could do it at a random burger joint, or we could do it at like a fancy restaurant. I want to clarify that, like, in my mind, when I thought like burger joint, I thought like, this is going to make me sound like a yuppie. Like In-N-Out, or like a fast casual place too, right? So it could be like, it doesn't have to be burgers specifically. It could be like a walk in and grab chicken or anything like that, where kind of like more of like a...
The concept of a burger joint, but it doesn't have to be burgers. It's the vibe of burger joint.
Yeah, it's not as much what we're saying as it is what we're not saying.
It's exactly what we feel. We want you to know what we feel. That's what we're trying to get at here.
I love...
Can I try and influence? Because you went in there with your voting for 3D, but like, man, food court in a mall, like, come on, that's
a good setup. Like, and I've got to say, Thomas, you mentioned a place where there's food. I don't want to be in a place where there's no food.
Yeah.
But I like the food court in a mall too, because I think it adds a lot of variety. Like, you can have so many different kinds of food, so many different kinds of monsters, so many different places. Well, like, maybe that brings us to scope check though.
Yep.
That's true. That's a very good point.
Adding a note, looks like, so if you're not sure where the poll is, it's at the top of the Twitch chat. So you got to kind of jump up and click the drop down here to participate. Get your votes in. There's a bunch of you watching, so we want all of you to weigh in and let us know. Ooh, what a Good Burger. Did y'all see they're making Good Burger too? I'm pretty excited. I love that movie. It's a piece of my childhood.
Why did you say, you said what a good burger in the same way that you would say what a good dog? And like that makes sense. I have this vision of you like petting your burgers now. Like, what a good burger.
That's
I can visualize that too.
Yep. I definitely am gonna pet the burger.
Ooh, I see that one suggestion is a farm, and that's a very interesting idea, because that would mean the potential for outdoors and indoors, depending.
Get some lighting, get some like strategy. We could have the virus or whatever makes the monsters spread to like the sheeps or whatever's at the farm. So then we're running from like vampire cows and trying to throw food at them. Like,
and hey, man, like, not to like, bring up, styles and past games or anything, but if there's a farm, there are definitely UFOs. Like, that's how that works.
Yeah. Yeah.
Scope check.
I already have the UFO, man.
True, we do have a UFO model from our latest AR course.
Yeah.
Ooh, I like this question from Jason Spatial. Are we going to feed them from a distance via high velocity delivery mechanisms? That could be an update.
Yeah, that sounds very interesting.
That implies that there are low velocity food delivery methods, and I'm not aware of these. Like, how do you guys eat? Because with me, it's just food.
It's just like a t-shirt gun, but with hot dogs. All right, so it is going to be in a school cafeteria by one vote.
Hey, school cafeteria still has a lot of potential.
There is, because like, so I don't know about y'all, but my high school cafeteria, we had this weird thing where like, so you had like where you get your food, right? And you go through the lines, and there was like 5 lines, and like one line was like the mediocre hamburger, one line was the $5 pizza, one line was like the chicken sando, right? But then as you walked out, there was like stairs built into the floor that dropped into like a dip in where everybody could sit and hang out. So you had all these like 4 like ceramic lined stairs, and then you had the tables inside this like terror dome. So we could even do something like that.
I completely understand what you're saying, but when you said stairs built into the floor, my mind just like flew away. It's like, wow, what else are they built into? Like, where are these stairs if they're not in the floor?
So like, what I mean is like the floor is like lower. I'm not good with describing stuff from my memories.
What you're that says that your school was built in the 70s, because that was a very popular like design decision in the 70s, and what those were called were conversation pits. So the idea is that after you went through what I like to refer to as the roller coaster of food selection choices, because it's got the same aisles as a roller coaster, you get your food and then you go to the conversation pit to have your lunch. That's super cool, I think.
Yeah. So I'm seeing someone say school cafeteria, so boring. Here's what I'm saying. You haven't been to our school yet. It can be any kind of school.
Yeah.
It can be a scary gothic school. It could be a school for young magicians. It can be any kind of school we want. So yeah, it's going to be good. So let me update that. So this is in the world, Isometric 3D world of a school's cafeteria.
Ooh, okay.
A sudden outbreak of hungry monsters occurs. Da, 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 da. All right, let's go to this run a show doc. See what else we put in here. So I don't believe we can make polls on the fly. Correct me if I'm wrong, production. But if we can,
over
I would
YouTube,
like to add a few things.
What's happening?
Unity actually posted out, it could be a clown college. And my goodness gracious, it could be a clown college.
That would be scary. That would be a scary game. I am scared of clowns.
Sorry, I'm just like, my mind is like expanding with potential, especially now that I know that you're afraid of clowns. Like, there could be like,
oh my god, why
clown,
would you use
a
that
vampire
against
clown,
me?
a snake clown.
And I also am afraid of snakes. So no, at least like
Oh,
give
no.
me one or the other. Either just the clowns or the snakes. Can't have them both.
Oh man.
So yeah, we have a
This is
lot
great.
of school options here. A grave school. It could be a school for grave diggers. And they
Ooh.
accidentally dig up the wrong grave, which makes them all rise. I mean, there's potential here. Snake clowns. I don't know what it's...
No,
Can
no
somebody-
snake clowns. No
Can
snake
somebody
clowns.
draw a snake clown? I don't even know what it would look like. It doesn't have to be good.
How can
I'm
a snake
sorry,
clown
if you-
ever be good?
The act of drawing a snake clown, it will be good. There's no way that drawing will not be good.
So, on the clown college, the boss fight would be this clown car comes barreling through the school and crashes, and a giant snake clown gets out of the clown car with its 50 snake clown homies, and you gotta like rapid feed all. Like,
Man, I'm
Gotcha.
out. I'm out.
Sub quits the stream. I'm sitting here like, how are we instantiating all 50 of these guys at the same time?
Object pooling. We'll use object pooling.
No,
Okay.
All right, so. We have a 3D isometric game taking place in a school cafeteria. We got to figure out what kind of school it is, and we got to feed these animals because the more hungry they're gonna get. I think thinking about the mechanics. So some of the things that we wanted to put in here in this doc, and we kind of talked about it, is we have an energy level. Like, is this going to be more casual? Is it going to be frantic? I feel like it's got to be frantic, but. Just based on the energy of the stream?
I mean, but can you imagine, how would you make this like a relaxed, like how would
I
that,
mean,
like
you
it's
could.
a chill game.
Hear me out. So what if the monsters are like chill monsters? They're like, hey, as long as we get food, timely fashion, every day at certain time, we don't screw with you, we leave you alone.
So
Our
it's
man-
not so much of them coming to attack you, it's more like them leaning in your room like a roommate, like, hey man, like, I'm pretty hungry, and
Yeah.
if you don't feed me, I'll eat you, but I'm
Yep.
down to wait.
Yep, exactly. See, that could be a good vibe, I can see that vibe, kind of chill vibe, how all of us are pretty chill.
Yeah, and it's worth noting as well that production came through because Freeman is the greatest stream producer of all time, and I mean that wholeheartedly. Man is coming through with our ideas. So we do have a pull up. Is it going to be casual? Is it going to be frantic? And or is it going to be like character based? And I guess that's a weird way to describe it when I said characters, but like are we going to like character? I don't know what that means.
Yeah, tell
Are you
us,
gonna make it a
Thomas.
visual novel? Is that
It's a
what
visual
characters
novel,
mean?
I guess, about feeding animals. I'm not sure what characters means. So, like, if you really want to hurt us, vote for that one and see if we can figure out what we meant.
It's a character study of each of the monsters. So, like, the clown comes in, and then it zooms in on him, and then we learn about his sad childhood and the reason why he decided to become a clown. And then he eats Utsav. Just
Why me? Why me?
because I know your weakness now.
Should have never told you.
Ooh, we had a really, really good question from the YouTube chat from a Hamster Hunter. Like, could this game design doc be used with Scrum? And if so, what's the difference between like a GDD and a user story? That's such a cool question. So, like,
Agreed.
I've done a little bit of product work. Utsav has done a ton of product work as a technical product manager. So, I would love to hear your thoughts on it.
But why don't you go ahead first? I want to see what you think.
Yeah, so like, it's my opinion that product design and game design are the same thing. And I know, Joy, you have a very good opinion about how instructional design and game design.
Instructional design's the same too.
It's all like the same thing, right? So it could absolutely be user stories. And I think for me, the user story would be, what do we want the players to experience in the game? And how do we want them to engage with our game? And that's how we would drive that user story. And then from there, I think we want to look at who the audience is that we're trying to sell this game to and that we're trying to deliver this game to.
Yeah. And yeah, so I think that's a great way to put it. I'll just add a few things, and I think user stories should help define your design documents. And when it comes to, the game being a product itself, yes, absolutely. So a game design document is technically just a product requirements document, but for a game, right? It's a subset of a product, and then you decide who you're building the game for. Is it like 18 to 25-year-olds casual game they can play for 10 minutes during their commute, or are you trying to play for a hardcore gamer competitive multiplayer, right? So that's how you create your user personas, and then let that kind of guide you within the design document. So they're kind of complementing each other in building your product for the specific user that you want to. And it's probably too deep. I'm going too deep. I don't know if you should go deeper, but that's how I see it. I see them both. They're both useful tools to build what you want to build for the right audience.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think you're going too deep at all in that case. I think when you look at it from that perspective, what you're naturally going to be constantly doing is going back and thinking about the user. And that's really at the core of all good game designs, is going back and making sure that it fits who you want it to fit, and making sure that the player is going to have the best possible experience. Going back, not to be pulling out Unity creeds and everything, but the whole users first thing is so vital, not just to game design, but that's what we're talking about here. So it's so vital to game design to be constantly questioning whether or not you are serving your user with every decision that you make.
Yeah.
So I think
I couldn't agree more. And when it comes to Unity values, I think users first, and I don't want to make it like a Unity values call, but I think users first is the most important one, especially when you're building things like we are, right? Which is where your user is the primary focus. And I think that's amazing.
So just to jump back real quick, we had some folks join late and ask some questions. So yes, the goal of this stream is basically, we're all on the education team here at Unity, and we're going to try to make a small game in 8 weeks. We're calling it Scope Check because we're going to try to keep everything within scope. And the whole premise is approaching us from like learning how to do this and us learning a bunch of stuff on the way. So we will be challenging ourselves and trying to take on pieces of the project that we may not be comfortable with, and just kind of letting you experience our journey. The goal being not to be as comfortable as Joy's cat is in the window.
Dude, right?
So,
like, I am so jealous of his vibe. Like, you can't see all of it, but like, he's living in his being. He's living his best life. And while that's wonderful, I'm actually really, really excited to be very confused and lost and make mistakes on stream. Because I think that's the most important thing, especially for people who aren't necessarily comfortable making their own games yet, is that no matter how many years of experience you have as game developers, you're always going to be making mistakes. You're always going to be confused. And you'll always approach each project, and at some moment it's going to be like, what is game? How do things?
Yes.
What is computer? Like, I cannot tell you every time I'll get into Unity and I'll be going along. It's like, yeah, this is great. What's this drop down do? Oh God, how does any of this work?
And I really hope I'm a prime example of that, because I've done game dev for 7-8 years, but I've never touched any networking code ever in my life.
Yeah.
Like I last I did that was in college. Our physics is something that I don't have a lot of experience with. I've done some of it, but not a lot. So I'd want to jump into those and kind of show everybody how you learn these things, and how no matter what experience you have, you've got to be kind of on your toes and really thinking about what you're doing to do next, and not just think about what you did before. So 100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
with that, I'm going to drag us to our next poll item because we got more stuff to figure out. The question is, what kind of heroes do we want to put into this game?
Ooh.
And so we did approach this as the idea of like, maybe it's a mall food court was kind of our general base idea, but this could be anything, right? Like you could be serving a certain type of food at the school cafeteria. We can work that out. So our ideas that we came up with for this poll, is it going to be somebody from, say, like Pretzel Land? Maybe they make stick dogs, hot dogs on a stick. Maybe they make Paschetti, and specifically, we will spell it Paschetti in the game. I will die on that hill. Or like Green Caesar, and Green Caesar, that was like a soup and salad place. What was the idea there from us? I'm trying to remember.
It was because it was in a mall idea. So we were punting all over the place. So Pretzel Land, I know Stick Dogs. Stick Dogs is extremely good. If anybody gets that pop quiz, audience, what is Stick Dogs a pun about? Green Caesar.
Yeah, I don't remember Green Caesar. Must have been a salad place, right?
It's gotta be like a salad spot, right?
Yeah.
What healthy thing is in a mall? Is
nothing?
Orange Julius? No, those are full of ice cream. I don't know, but
wait, no. Oh my god, it was Orange Julius. Because
it was Orange Julius. That's what it was.
Because orange, green, because that's and then instead of Caesar, Julius. We are smart. We are.
That's
so
how
funny.
we did this. Yeah. So Green Caesar would be like a health shake place, basically.
I love how I remember us thinking that we were so clever when we were discussing this, and then we come back to it later. We're like, what? What were we talking about?
That's gonna come back when we write code, and then we're going back to it in our 2 episodes later, and we're like, why did we write this code? It's gonna be the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Which is Green Caesar.
Why documentation is so important. We still have the poll up. It is in the Twitch chat if you want to jump in and help us figure out what we're doing. Right now, we actually have a tie between Green Caesar and Stick Dogs. So
I love Stick Dogs.
Stick Dogs. So we're gonna need help with breaking that tie.
Pretzel Land got a vote. What?
Yeah, and there's a good chunk of people watching this. Apologies to the YouTube chat. But let's go see what's going on over in YouTube land.
Yeah.
I wonder what you said can apply to me as an intern trying to find an internship for Unity. It's not something I'm really living the life of trying to figure out. But dang, Stick Dogs. My gosh, we're tied 9 apiece now on Stick Dogs and Green Caesar.
Ooh.
Come on, you guys can make a difference.
Can I vote?
Yeah, you could be the deciding vote. Okay, if there's a tie, we'll have to do a tiebreaker.
Stick Dog pulls ahead.
Yeah.
Come on,
Stick Dog's ahead. Stick Dog's got the lead.
Come on, keep running.
Stick Dog's still running. I just want to find a way to create I want that character, if it's Stick Dog, to have a really tall chef hat that's orange and white striped.
Just obscenely long. Perhaps gets longer as time goes by.
Yeah, it's gonna be good. It's gonna be very good.
I think I also, have we do we want to talk about what should a GDD contain? When you're thinking about creating a GDD, and obviously these are some of the questions we have, but in general, what is the purpose of a GDD? How do you know that your GDD is at a place where you can, start an agile development process and build out an MVP?
Yeah, that's a really good thing to be asking about now, since that's kind of something that we're going to have to be doing next. And, it really depends, I think, from project to project, how deep you want to go. And it also depends on your perspective on how much time should be spent on pre-production in comparison to, production and post-production even. Personally, for me, I prefer to design a game design document to the point where I could truly look back on it as the instruction document for the game, where there are no questions left unanswered. Mm-hmm. If I am building it, it's because it's referenced in the GDD. And if it's not in the GDD, I'm not building it.
That's a very good point. But then how do you create it an agile process? What in that sense, would you consider it a waterfall software development cycle?
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit more waterfall in that sense. And this is just, again, this is all down to personal preference. But for me, I have the most success when I'm developing projects when I have a clear plan going forward. And it helps a lot on scope check as well. Because when you think of a really awesome idea and it's not in the game design document and you're already producing stuff, it's like, man, this is a great idea, but I can't do it because it's not in the doc. And then maybe you like write a little note to yourself off to the side. Like I actually have a notebook where I just write all of my ideas so I can get them out of my head and go back to work, and then just focus on that. That's how I do things. But again, like it's super personal and it will differ for everybody.
Yeah, and I think that's why teams create processes, right? And I think, the three of us together kind of figure out what would work best for the three of us and not us individually is kind of part of the process, right? Because you only build games as part of the team. I mean, obviously there are indie developers, and hats off to you, because doing all that by yourself is an achievement in itself, right? If you can do that, all the power to you. But most often you have a small team, a larger team, and you're trying to work together, and working together I think is a big aspect of game development, and defining kind of processes and rules and things around how you're going to handle disagreements, how you're going to create objectives and timelines and processes, milestones, I think ends up being pretty important within the pre-production phase.
Yep. We have a really good question from the YouTube chat. And I think this is something that like everyone can kind of weigh in. I think you two would actually be better to weigh in on it than myself, only because you've been through that process a lot deeper than I have. But what's the most common within like, what is the most, I guess what is most common? I guess Pearline, I'd love to hear more on what you're thinking. Like, what is most common within game development for the software development lifecycle? And I'm wondering if like you're thinking like from an iteration perspective, from a documentation perspective. I know one thing we're really wanting to do in this show in this area is, we want to make sure that like documentation is really key, and we want to call out evidence of that, because like if you look at like our documentation, right, like we just had a moment where we're like, what is Green Caesar, right? And we're all laughing and discussing it, but it's because I didn't document it thoroughly. Like we wrote down these ideas because we were having brainstorming meetings and planning meetings, and then we moved on to our next thing. We didn't get our documentation right, and now you get to see a problem of like us laughing, but also behind it there's like, oh, what did we actually mean by that, right? But it's I saw you had your hand up a little bit.
Yeah, no, I was probably just doing some stuff, but I think to me, game dev is the most agile of software developments instead of being more waterfall. And I don't mean from a pre-production phase, but when you're in production, right? Because a lot of the times when you're doing game dev, the big question is it fun? But how you define fun is very different, and it could be different from person to person, right? So how do you get to the point where you've ubiquitously come to a conclusion that this is going to be fun for our target audience, right? You do that through an iterative process of creating either a prototype, right? And I'm happy to talk about the differences between a prototype and a vertical slice, but you could either start with a prototype, which you throw away later, or you start with a vertical slice and put it in the hands of the players, right? Take that feedback. Continue to kind of change and develop and iterate with respect to the feedback, because what you're really trying to do is to create a fun, engaging, immersive experience for your players. And that's the most important part that you have to iterate on, because you could think about a million things that are fun, but you won't actually know till people are playing the game and you're trying to figure out what they're doing.
Yeah.
Super true. And this is a little left of field, because I mean, this is not, well, maybe it's something that we would do. I doubt it, but like Utsav, I'd be really interested to hear your perspective, and Thomas too. Like, have you guys ever gone through the process of doing analog testing before you actually start building in Unity?
Could you describe analog testing to me?
So you're talking like paper prototyping?
Prototyping, or even like just using people. Like, say, for example, if we were to build an analog prototype of this game, maybe we would have a group of people being the monsters, and then a group of people being, the stick doggers, and then like throwing paper at the monsters to see like, okay, what works and what doesn't work. Like, have you guys ever experimented with that?
So I have not. Most of my design work is always done like on paper, like in a document, and then kind of like prototyping. But I do know, like I see Debbie in the chat right there, one of our awesome educators. I also know Mark Suter, we saw Garlic Suter earlier. They do that with their students. Like they actually have them physically prototype out the interactions. And I think there's a lot of power in doing something like that. I also want to jump back and clarify something so someone doesn't feel like we ignored them. Someone asked, they don't get the stick dog joke. Google hot dog on a stick. They're just a very common American fast food chain, and their uniforms are amazing. I think they're still in business, but anyway, that's the whole gaff there. I think that's a great idea. We could do some kind of like physical prototyping somehow.
Scope check.
Yeah, it's always definitely right. I don't think necessarily we'd be able to do that, especially on stream. That would get very technical. But it's funny too because like in listening to what like Utsav was talking about with like iterative design, which is like something that I feel very strongly about. I actually kind of view that as part of pre-production, where yeah, you might dive into Unity a little bit, but like you're trying to get the game feel correct, and then based off of what you find there, it goes in the game design document, and then you start production. So, like I think that's probably not a very common opinion, to be putting that sort of work into pre-production, but that's just something that I also find that I often do, and it totally is pre-production in my head.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think it's definitely pre-production, and I have done something similar, and this was when I was in school for game dev, and we were learning how to do game design, and I created this paper prototype of a slow-paced non-traditional platformer, and I can talk about it another day. But to your point, I think that's fair. But my concern would only be is like once you start building, what if in the digital space you don't, your kind of user stories don't match up? It's like,
Right.
do you have room to be iterative at that point, or do you feel like? Because I think one thing within game development you always want to avoid is the sunk cost fallacy. It's like, hey, I've put so much work into this feature, into developing this thing, into designing this thing. My players don't like it, so instead of trying to like scrap it and do something else or change it, I'm going to try to keep trying to fix it.
Yeah.
And I think then you get into that loop. So I'd want to avoid that loop. But I think it's a completely fair way to approach things if you're like totally understandable on like, hey, it may or may not work, and I may have to iterate on it. But otherwise, I think it's great to have that level of detail in pre-production.
Absolutely. And and just to clarify too, like I'm not saying that if you like find something that doesn't work that you just keep sticking to it. But if you find something that doesn't work, you update your game design document.
Yeah.
Like
exactly.
You do not just be like going off the rails at that point. Like you figure out what does work and then you update your GDD so it reflects that. So like inevitably if you like, I don't know, get abducted by aliens and you're away from your game for 2 months and you come back, you'll know what's up. Yes, this is going to be an example throughout this experience. Just get ready for it.
No, I 100% agree. I think being able to do that is a superpower in game development that you need. And, maybe it's not a superpower. It's just a regular, ordinary power, but you need it.
I think all powers are super.
I want to jump on some YouTube
go.
questions before we launch our next poll. I think Freeman's got our next one ready for us because we forgot if are we gonna decide if this is multiplayer or single player? Is that a thing we were gonna figure out?
We were, if I remember correctly.
We were, yeah. So that's the next poll we're gonna launch. But we did have a really good question. Like, what tools exist for linking code commits when tweaking and the related game documents tasks? And there's a lot of integrations. Like I think you can use like Jira to integrate with like GitHub and a lot of other tools and products out there, right? Perforce has integrations. For our needs, and we're going to actually explain this next episode when we go through like our technical choices. Thank you so much. The poll is up in the Twitch chat. How many players? Single player, multiplayer online, or multiplayer co-op? Co-op will be side by side, hot seat if we do the co-op version. That was our way of describing like basically two controllers and people playing side by side, kind of like Overcooked. So anyway, back to what I was saying, like we will talk about kind of like what our plans will be in more depth, but I think we're going to use Plastic SCM internally is kind of our plan for our stuff. But we are planning on pushing this project out to GitHub so you all can look at it and fork it and do whatever you want with it.
I also see that we got a question around the GDG itself and whether or not it'll be available, and I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, we could publish it.
There's no reason why not.
Yeah. And talking about split screen, I actually made this game where in a single player game, your screen can split up to 8 times, and you essentially replay your same level up to 8 times. So it was a very cool game. Maybe another time I'll tell you guys about it.
Yeah. Sounds really, really cool. And I also want to, we got some comments earlier in the chat about how like we're being like super lighthearted and not like super like intense. This isn't like built to be an intense learning experience where we're going through like 45 learning objectives, right? Like we're here to make a game, have a good time, and learn a bunch from it. And honestly, making games and learning should be fun. So that's kind of our goal here. That's the goal of the vibes.
I mean, at the end of the day, making games is inherently a form of play. That obviously if you go to like, major corporation, super business, it could be a little bit more serious, but I think it's very important to remember that even the triplest of A studios do not go into the office wearing ties.
No. And in fact, if you do wear ties, people probably think you're like, visiting the office, doing something else, maybe just doing biz dev. But also going back to kind of tools used, I think a lot of times, I wanted to kind of touch on this and I totally forgot, so I wanted to come back here.
Yeah,
but
please do.
A lot of times I think you don't directly link tasks to GDD. You kind of create a Jira task list and kind of divide that into what your major milestones are, right? So like, for example, for MVP, you have some kind of processes and tasks, and then for your alpha, for your beta, right? And that's how you measure kind of your progress through those tasks. And you could do Jira, you could do Kanban boards, you could do Trello boards. If you're brave enough, you could do Excel or Google Sheets. I wouldn't recommend those tools, but if you're brave enough, you could do them.
Excel is only for the brave.
yes, I would have to say. But yeah, that's what I would say.
And we'll be picking up like tools to utilize for that. I think like we talked about it internally. Our real-time learn team uses Airtable for a lot of productivity tracking, and so there's a good chance you're going to see us using that because we have access to it, and so we just can.
Easy.
And it's easy for us. Trello is really good.
Yeah, Trello's great.
Anything that you can divide your tasks and really subdivide. I want to add a note too. Like somebody asked about Project Zombie Toys. So Zombie Toys is a Unity certified associate game developer project. It does exist. It is real. It's part of our certification pathways, and I believe it is on the asset store. If you search for
what
Unity,
I can say about that.
Okay, I mean, I know because I just got done updating all the course content, so I know that it exists. But so it should be there.
Working with it.
Yeah, but it is actively in production, so yeah, it's not going anywhere. That's about all we can say, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, so our next poll is up. Of course, multiplayer online worked. Like I didn't even have a doubt in my head. Like I knew that was going to get chosen by everybody because it's like, yeah, we want to see him. We want to see him sweat. Right?
I think that means we have to really think about scope when we do a lot of other things. Yeah.
Yep.
But
yeah, we definitely
this is actually
do.
Really exciting.
Yeah.
Like, because Utsav already mentioned that this is an area that's new. This is 100% an area that's new for me. Thomas, how about you? Have you? Yeah.
I have looked at the netcode for game objects Space Cats demo project and boss room. That's about as far as I've gotten. So we're gonna try and we're gonna see. So part of the show, it's a scope check, and one of the things in scope is can we actually do this?
And the answer is yes. Well, we can try.
Hopefully. That's the goal. So yeah. So okay, it's gonna be multiplayer. So let me
I've never done a multiplayer
all right.
before, guys.
I haven't either. I'm actually really excited to try it.
Yep.
I'm just gonna write multiplayer here like this, and I'm gonna put it in bold and italics.
I'm anxious
worth noting
now.
that we're gonna have a pretty like basic outline of our game design document, and then we're gonna go offline and like really flush it out, finish everything we want to make sure we're covered. We'll probably have a meeting next week to tackle it. We're gonna learn to Google real good. We're gonna talk to the netcode for game objects team and go through their tutorials. It's gonna be good. Yeah, we're gonna set it up. Yeah, we're gonna go really heavily. Somebody could have asked us to make an MMO just to get real weird. Also, don't pick an MMO as your first game.
Yeah, please don't. You will cry. Everybody cries. Everybody wants to make an MMO and then they cry.
I also want to address there was a lot of AI based questions in the chat earlier. Like if I get really stuck, I might ask AI a few questions. But that's about as far as I'm willing to go down that rabbit hole currently. Like I think we got some stuff. Yeah, I'm excited. This is gonna be good. Izzy Mac. Excited you're here with us as well. Okay, so I think now the only thing we got to figure out is like enemies, and I actually have some stuff to show you all enemies wise. So let's talk about enemies. I think we can do some waves of enemies. So we did some asset research previous to this, and we actually, I think I post links. Yeah, I did. So of course we went to Kenny.nl because they make incredible free assets. Ooh, Jiro is using netcode for game objects with lobby, relay, cloud save. Ooh. It will be fun seeing how we do it because we are going to be
maybe he can help us out.
Yeah, we might have to ask you some questions. Let's see if I'm checking what this. A multi. Somebody wants us to make a 3D multiplayer top-down isometric MMO with clowns. That is.
Why the clowns?
That's our elevator pitch. That's literally like we walk into the elevator with like funding guys, right? And we're like, yo, isometric top-down MMO with clowns. Boom,
And then say
$100,000
nothing
in our
more.
pocket. Day one.
Yeah, like, and it's got to be on a long elevator ride too. So after you say that, intense staring and no more words. They just start handing you the money. They're like, "Yep, this is it. This
Even
is what
better,
we do."
dress up like a clown.
Yep. And I love this.
Okay, now we get to explore your fear. It's up. Now,
Right.
could you dress
I
up
made a
as
mistake.
clown?
I made a mistake. Forget I said that.
So I do want to address, someone said they use Unity for digital twins, and we found that watching game dev tutorials really helps a lot. Absolutely. Like, that's the beauty of real-time 3D, right? Game dev, it expands, it goes everywhere. All right, so let's talk about enemies. So we got these zombos we found on Kenny 3D. So we got this regular gent here with the zombo version of them. I think that's a pretty good one. Might have to show you some tabs. I apologize. Skeletons, I found a few skeleton packs, but I haven't linked out to them. Looking at robots, like we could do some like blocky robots.
Oh, I love me some blocks. Blocks are good.
You know, clowns wasn't on the table at the time, so now I need to add that to the list so we can do some clowns.
No, I thought we
Kenny's
decided
gotta
we weren't
have
going to do
clowns.
clowns.
Kenny's gotta have clowns. It's like a thing, right? Like somebody find Kenny clowns. We know that it has to exist.
When did this stream become Let's Scare Utsav stream?
But here's the thing, like by the end of this, if we end up going clowns, you won't be afraid of clowns anymore. Like
I hope
used
so.
To be, I was deathly afraid of aliens when I was a kid. Like that was my fear. And now I'm not.
Yep.
So, and it was just, exposure therapy, watching all of the X-Files, playing all of the spooky games
I'm
that
ready.
I could.
I'm not really ready, but I'm ready. I'm not ready.
So I think, I don't think we need to run a poll on this. Maybe we do, but I think like, this is really just looking at some of the assets we've all looked at, so y'all kind of know what we've kind of thinking art direction-wise. I found this really cool like food pack free demo on the asset store that we might look at. It has a bunch of different
Tasty.
food types that we can consider throwing at our monsters.
Neat.
We've also got, this fantasy town kit from McKinney looks really clean. So we might be able to repurpose some of these to go into our school cafeteria, maybe change some of the colors. We got a nice furniture kit here we can dive into, so we can repurpose these. Like these desks look like they could be really good cafeteria tables.
That's true. That's true. And
or
hey, look, we got
this.
some stores. We could sink those into the floor, make a conversation.
Make some nice conversation pits. Yeah, so we got that ready. I wonder if I can go to my old high school and take photos and not get in trouble. I'll have to reach out to him and be like, hey, I just want to it's for a game.
Probably
So
when
then
there
we've
are
got
no kids around.
Yeah, like on a Saturday or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got these nice little monster packs here. Like we got this like ogre looking fellow. We got a robot. So yeah, we've got.
I like the guy with the mustaches. It reminds me of me.
Yeah, right. It's like if you're gonna go like mountain climbing.
Yeah.
Well, no, that's perfect because if Utsav is in the game, then we can have clowns come after him.
Oh
And you
my
can play-
god! I am not liking where this is going.
All right.
See, everybody thought we were making like a fun, frantic, like hyper casual game. No, we're making a horror game, but it's very tailored to one specific person.
All right.
If
So
I
now
have
what
nightmares
we need.
about this, I'm blaming you guys.
I'm sorry. All right. So here's our to-dos for next week. Here's what we got to do. So we need to pick our version of Unity. Version of Unity, right?
Yeah.
We need to research and select assets.
Mhm.
And start putting together our kit.
Mhm.
We need to set up VC. We need to flush out and finalize our GDD.
Yes, we do.
What else am I missing, chat? What else would you... You're in here thinking, like, what else would you do to finish this up? I think, like, it's a pretty good starting point for us, right? To, like, really get this game design doc locked in, get our art assets figured out and our color. Yeah, we want to try to build the prototype for a stream, though. So I think for next week, we're not going to try to have a prototype ready. But definitely that's going to be on our list. I think... So to give you all some insight into next week's goals is we're going to come in, we'll discuss the version of Unity, show you some of the assets we've selected, show you how we set up version control and how that's working. And then we're actually going to pick and assign jobs of like who's building what piece and who's doing what chunk. Yeah, I like that from Gareth. We got to pick up like our core loops and verbs.
Yep.
Like what actions are the user taking? What are they doing? Next week, I think we're also going to agree on like naming conventions and variable names and stuff.
Camel case? Cool.
100%.
Glad we all agreed.
Yep. Yeah, it wasn't even...
Pascal. No.
I don't want to out any older developers, but we all agree also that we're not going to do an underscore under private variables, right? At the start of private variables, we're going to skip that. Okay, cool. Not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying it makes typing harder for me, and it makes me sad.
Yeah, I think
Joe agrees.
Unity has a different standard for it, if I remember correctly. I can't remember what it is, but we'll find out.
We actually got a really great question from Hamster Hunter over on YouTube. How do you balance between what the team members actually can do and the actual requirements for the game?
That's a great question.
We're gonna figure that out.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Utsav.
No, I was just gonna say, I think for this stream it might be different than what a regular game dev would be, because we're looking to challenge ourselves and we want to learn new things and really kind of show how you learn through things. But I think if in a more kind of setting where you're part of a studio and part of a team, those things might be a little better defined in the sense of like, you have an engineer who focuses on networking, another engineer who focuses on, character development, input, and things like that. But for our stream, we're going to want to challenge ourselves. So it may not represent the right kind of studio atmosphere. And
Sure.
Go ahead, Thomas and Joy.
Yeah. Go ahead, Joy.
Yeah, so I actually think that it'll probably be more of a good representation of maybe like indies, which, it's kind of the world that we're sort of living in. Whereas normally you'd be like, okay, who has this skill? And instead with us, it's going to be like, okay, who's the most uncomfortable about this concept? You get it. So that's at least how I'm going to be approaching this, is I'm going to look at things and be like, wow, I really don't think I understand that. Time to learn.
Yep. That's kind of how I want to approach as well.
Same.
So I want to jump on. We had a nice YouTube comment. So somebody was like, "Hey, you need to make sure you include timelines." I completely agree. We'll need to lay out like what our timelines are, specifically because we are trying to make this in 8 weeks. And then somebody said like roadmap of the project. That's the next thing, right? We're gonna have to set up milestones and like, hey, when does each piece need to be done by? We've already done a little bit of that behind the scenes because we're trying to plan 8 stream episodes, right? So there was some production work behind the scenes to do that, but now like the rubber's to the road and we really have to tackle that. Someone's saying you have too cheerful of a studio atmosphere to be realistic. I mean, it's because we haven't started trying to do this thing yet, right? Like we're still in the honeymoon phase. Give us a few weeks.
Still embrace the stress. It'll be fine.
I think design document is the fun part. You're trying to figure out what you're going to build. It's when when you start building and you start running into issues and you're missing timelines and deadlines, that's when the stress creeps in.
Eventually we're going to have to find a way to like adjust our cameras so they can see us just lying face down on the floor, just like, oh. But I want to go back really quick. Thomas, there was like a minute ago where you were talking about our timelines and building out in 8 weeks, and it feels like that was the moment that like it processed for you, because it's like, we're going to try and build this out in, and there's this moment where he's like, oh god, no, 8 weeks.
I noticed that too.
Yeah.
I saw that. I'm not letting you get away from that. I saw that.
No, and it's fair because honestly my brain went multiplayer 8 weeks. Right, but I think we can do it. Like I think with netcode for game object, we could actually get basic multiplayer functionality running, pretty nicely. I also really like the someone asked the question VS Code versus Writer.
Yeah, I was just about to bring that up.
I don't know what we're gonna work in, to be honest.
I'm using Writer. I'm a writer kind of guy.
Man,
I cannot go back to Visual Studio.
You know what? I'm willing to try something new. I haven't tried Writer yet, and this is all about trying new things. So
I'll use Writer.
It's
so
good.
I don't have a preference on platform. For me, I use Visual Studio because I teach a lot of beginners. And so I try to emulate what they're going to see.
Yeah.
And if they're installing Unity off the rip, they're going to see Visual Studio. So that's what I work in predominantly, because all the tutorial work I do, all the stuff I do is like, well, I need them to, like the last thing you want to have happen is a beginner jumps in and you're using Writer and they see all these different things and they're like,
That's
so
true.
yeah, I'm totally open to using Writer for this. VS Code is really good. I use VS Code for a lot of the web dev work I've done.
Yeah, but I really like your point. Maybe we stick to Visual Studio just from a beginner's point of view, to be like, hey, if you were just starting off, this is exactly what you would see. This is the environment you'd be in.
That is a good point.
And for me, it'd be kind of like a relearning Visual Studio shortcuts, because it's been a while since I've used it. So it could be a cool experience. I'm down to try it.
Is there any technical reason that we all can't use whatever we want?
No.
Uniformity.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
we could. Actually, yeah, that could be interesting where it's like, Utsav was like, yeah, check this out. Blah! And then like it cuts back to one of us and we're just going in plain old Visual Studio.
Or like maybe we figure out how to do the same thing. Like, I mean, I'm just saying, like, maybe we could all work in whatever we're comfortable with and see how that works out. And then over time that could change.
Yeah, no.
Get it. Notepad.
Oh
my god. No, hey, actually, Notepad++ could work. But the reason I personally prefer Writer is because it's really good at understanding boxing allocations and some other kind of dynamic memory allocations that can cause memory leaks and things like that. So you don't have to run through a full static code analysis for your project. Writer just lets you know when you make those decisions while writing code, which is why I prefer it. But you could still run a static analysis on your code and get all of that through in Visual Studio or other things.
I do want to add a note. Someone in chat says, so 8 weeks, how many hours per day working part by part, including breaks to reset pressure? I don't know yet. It depends on how fast we can iterate on this. We'll have to see, because we also still have to do our full-time jobs. So that's going to be actually something we'll be evaluating.
Yeah,
that's a really great point to bring up too, because it's not like we get an 8-week vacation to be building this, so we won't be building it full-time. We still have like all of our normal Unity requirements. And so I think actually though that this is a great use case, because a lot of indies start out by trying to build their game while also working full time, right? Mm-hmm. So I hope that this can be a helpful perspective for people who are thinking about making the jump into indie development without taking the risk of quitting their full-time job, and just kind of seeing, some of the tactics that we take to be able to work around it. I also am not sure how we're going to pull this off, other than the fact that we're going to do our best and we'll find a cadence as we work through. And I think really what it is that really focusing on those tight production loops and iterating on simple things. Like in my mind, the first thing that I want to do is at least get the networking working just a tiny bit. So we just had that, like, here, it's there. We could test it out a little bit. Okay, that's good. Now let's move on to the next piece and add into that and just iterate out until we have the full game, hopefully within 8 weeks.
Yep, and I want to add a note. Somebody asked, hey, I came in late, I got notified later, whatever. Yeah, this is going to be recorded. You can watch it in the Twitch VODs. You can watch it in the YouTube VODs. You can see our folly in... We are archiving this for posterity, so it will be there. You'll get a chance to hang out. So yeah.
Ooh, we got a really good question in the YouTube chat.
Yep, hit
Mr. Light, how do we handle burnout? Let's talk about burnout before we have it. I think that's a really good question. Actually, like in general, like it genuinely is a fantastic question. I'd love to hear your guys' perspective.
So I can talk about a pretty recent experience for me. So like in my role at Unity, right? Like I do a lot of... Burnout was a great game. Thanks, Raymond. I do a lot of everything, right? I do public speaking, I travel, I talk to people, I do Zoom webinars, I do Twitch, which, by the way, somebody asked, are we going to do a Twitch student showcase anytime soon? I sure hope so. It's in the cards. I just got to figure out when to do it. But we do a ton of stuff, and the thing about this job is you can do everything, which is really stressful when you start thinking about, because you start saying yes to stuff, and then you find yourself on the road for, say, 3.5 weeks straight almost. So something I've had to really do to help manage burnout is I have to start saying no. And I also have to start like putting hard limits on my time to make sure I'm doing stuff that I enjoy, right? Like, which is like, I'm currently watching all of the Fast and the Furious movies because I just want to know what wild cinema is like. And man, these movies are wild. Dominic Toretto has superpowers. So like, that's the kind of like, so I have to kind of like develop and divide my time to make sure that I'm doing everything I love, which is my day job, which I absolutely love. But then also I'm playing games I like, and I'm seeing my wife and my dogs, and I'm seeing my friends who I have like 2 friends. I want to see them too, right? Like all of that stuff I want to make sure I do. And so I think that's part of what this show for us is about too, is like, that's why we ended up falling on the name Scope Check, is we want to manage that as well. And we want to manage the scope so that we don't suddenly come to everybody and say, hey, by the way, we're going to build an MMORPG with a full monetization system, and it's going to be fully pervasive online, and you're never going to ever go offline, and then realize that the only way to do that in 8 weeks is to never sleep, right? So I think that's part of like what we kind of want to do, is help manage burnout by appropriately managing our time and resources and knowing our limits and restraints. But I would love to hear from you too as well.
Yeah. Um, it's a lot. Burnout has in the past been like a really major feature in my life, um, both during school and then also getting into the industry. When I was in college, I actually had a true burnout incident where I very nearly dropped out because I was just so burnt out. Like I physically felt like literally burned, which is weird because you don't normally like have like physical effects. But ever since then, like that was my first like experience with burnout, and I was able to very slowly kind of recover without like really thinking about it. Then I unlearned those lessons getting into the game industry because I was taught that you have to do anything in order to succeed in the industry. And for me, that translated to doing insane things like commuting 6 hours a day to get to work, which was not fun and not wise. But really, the solution that I have found, and it's still very much a process, is recognizing burnout before it happens, and like being able to see the signs that, oh, it's starting, like I'm starting to feel burnt out, and taking the time to not do anything other than taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to do because, especially in this industry, there's still very much the mentality that if you're not doing something, you're slacking off. And that's wrong. You need to take time and do nothing. You need to take time and get away from your computer. You need to remember that more like number one, you are a human being. You are a living organism, and we're not designed to sit in one spot for 8 hours staring at a screen that's way too close to us. There's a reason why I have glasses now. And so just being very present with yourself and giving yourself the grace that you would give to other people. Like, if you're the type of person who thinks, like, if somebody comes to you and says, hey, I'm having a really hard day, like I'm struggling, I'm feeling bad, and your immediate thought is, you should take the day off and relax, but you never apply that to yourself, that's a problem. You need to apply that to yourself as well. You need to give yourself breaks. You are not slacking off. If you're feeling burnt out, you need to step away, and that's taking care of yourself and making things better, because when you come back, you're going to do better work.
Yeah, and honestly, I think it's really like I would agree with everything both of you have said, and to me, I think recognizing that you're getting close to burnout is a very important part of it, because I think, finding a solution before you reach the critical burnout phase is really going to save you a lot of time and stress and pressure that you feel. So, and for different people, it's probably different things, right? So like for me, procrastination is a thing that I do if I'm burnt out, and like, I'll wait till the last day, and then at 11 p.m. I'm completing my requirements doc because I'm burnt out and I don't want to do it 3 days before and take the time to actually do it well, right? And kind of to Thomas's point of like, sometimes our roles get pretty intense, right? So, as a product manager, and I've only been a product manager for about close to a year now, I'm still understanding how to work with non-technical functions within a big company, and how to kind of, push things through, and how to kind of understand those timelines and dependencies, right? At the same time, I'm also thinking about the games I used to build, and I don't build them anymore, and now I'm kind of anxious. It's like, oh shit, do I still know how to build games? Do I still know those things, right? So, burnout, I think, is a very important aspect, and also to go back to Thomas's point, I think, finding things that bring you joy outside of work, outside of, doing things along those lines, spending time with your family, friends, taking your dogs out for walks, taking some time to yourself. All of those are very important aspects of kind of recovering from burnout, in my opinion.
I hope that helps y'all. Always down to give some advice where we can. I think really what we're going to do now is we've got a requirements doc. We're ready to do things. We kind of know what we need to take in and get ready and like be prepared to do for next time. And so I think we just take stuff offline. We put together finalizing our documents, talk about everything we want to build and everything we want to set up. And then next week, same bat time, same bat channel, 1 p.m. Eastern, we're going to come back. We're going to have hopefully our version control set up so that we can sync stuff. We'll start looking at assets. We'll work on our technical design document. We will pick jobs. We'll start figuring out who's building what system and how systems need to interconnect to the best of our ability. Obviously, that stuff might change as we go through the next couple of weeks. and let's just see how far we can get with this party. And like, I can't say it enough. Thank you to everybody in the chat that showed up for this first adventure to see like what we're gonna try to do. I hope you stick with us. I hope you have a good time. I hope you push feedback to us as we're building this document. Tell us what you would do, how you would interact. Like, we've already gotten amazing stuff from some of the chat talking about like how they would build things, how they would set stuff up, how you would set up your timelines, your roadmaps. Keep pushing that for us, and we'll keep going for it and setting it up.
I'm so excited. I'm so
You guys-
excited.
It's gonna be great. Like, seriously, we've been talking about this for, you know, several months at this point, and you know, we basically have wanted to do something like this together since we all like met each other as a group. So I'm so stoked. This is gonna be so fun. I love making games, and I am so excited to make a game with you guys. This is gonna be great, and that includes the audience as well. Like, you guys are part of the development team.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, y'all. Be well. Have a good time. We'll see you next week, and have a wonderful weekend.
Yeah. Bye, everybody.